Great. So that started already. Yes, so we will have 3 experts on talent recruitment, and as far as I know, we can directly start into the sessions. And I would like to start with Jan, if you don't mind. Jan Bergerhoff, he's candidate from Candidate Select, and he will present us some short.
Julian, sorry. First, Julian will give a brief.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, Julian, of course. So just give us a short introduction, Julian, directly. Sorry again, the floor is yours.
Oh, good, oh, good. I wouldn't have minded to hand over to Jan directly.
Okay.
But yeah, also welcome from my side, from GINSEP side. We're really excited. One more event on the topic of talent. I think this is the session, the 5th or 6th session that we organized now over the last 2 years. And I'm really happy to have Jan and Jana and Suki also on board with that, and also great to do this session together with SEFE International also for the first time. So as you can see to the participants that have attended the session or one of those sessions before, we're still trying to spread the word about this, and it was actually great to have also a great number of registrants for this session. Let's see if more pour in the course of the session. So yeah, from GINSEP side, I just want to make it very brief. We do a lot of work on market access, so from India to Germany and Germany to India for startups that want to do business in the other market. And we also have a pilot project on connecting investors with startups, so we want to bring them together as well. But last but not least, of course, every startup needs smart people that are running it. And we have this big challenge in Germany, that is the scarcity of skilled labor, of experts over here. And that, of course, also is a challenge that startups are facing. That's why we want to target, or then we want to facilitate Indian experts, Indian talent to come to Germany or work at German startups. And we want to highlight why this is so far not happening too much, although I must say I see more and more Indians also coming to Germany. I guess many recruiters feel the same, that there are many applications from India, but why is it still so that it's still difficult for Indians to come to Germany and work here, and are really satisfied with the situation, because we have this need on the one hand, and on the other hand we have great and motivated and skilled people from India. So I'm really excited once more to have Jan, Jana and Suki here to shed light on this topic from their own perspectives. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Jan.
Thank you so much, Julian. I will share my screen, and I hope that it will work out so that all of you will be able to see it. Right.
Yes, we see your screen.
Excellent, perfect. Now I just have to make Zoom small so that I can also see it, and then we'll be ready to go. Yes.
Full screen. Great.
Excellent. Perfect. So I'm very, very happy that I'm allowed to spend some time with you today. Maybe you can hear it from my voice. I'm not on my best form, but it's not COVID. It is just a common cold, but I still have to labor through it. And if something is not understandable, or maybe if I'm coming out a little hoarse and it's not clear, then just write it into the chat or something, and I will definitely try to pick it up. Yeah, so I'm here as one of the co-founders and one of the co-managing directors of Candidate Select. And Candidate Select started out of the University of Bonn with a simple but ambitious goal, namely we wanted to make higher education degrees comparable across countries. And yeah, I think it is quite clear that that has a connection to recruiting talents globally, and also specifically when you are thinking about India. Why is India so important from a perspective of university graduates? Well, here you see a graph that shows the development of students in Germany, and we have been reasonably proud that from the 1990s, the number of German students has increased to almost 2.8 million here in 2020. And of those, there are roughly 15,000 Indian students at German universities at the moment. But this increase really pales compared to what has been happening in India at the very same time. So here in this graph, you have the German development as depicted by the blue line, and you have the Indian development depicted by the green line. And what you can see clearly is that India is going up to somewhere around 40 million here, and that whatever happens here in Germany seems rather insignificant by comparison. And I think this is rather even more spectacular if you consider the fact that in India, the enrollment ratio in tertiary education is around about 25% at the moment, and that currently this is expected to double. So if this were to double, we may go up to 60, 70, 80 million here. And many of these Indian talents and Indian graduates then also consider an application abroad, partially maybe because the labor market in India tends to be tough at the moment. And as Julian said, at the same time, for example, the German labor market is really in dire need of certain talents. And so it makes a lot of sense basically to connect the two. And of course, depending if you're representing a startup and you're thinking how to do this, the first place you will land is different job boards typically. So this slide has been designed by myself. I think this is very obvious because it's sort of a little bit childish. I do apologize for that. I'm not a born designer, but I hope it gets the message across. You have some platforms that we all know and that exist in both markets, like LinkedIn or Monster or Glassdoor. And then, of course, you have some platforms that are sort of market specific. The largest platform for Germany is Stepstone. And then we also have a network that is a little bit comparable to LinkedIn, only for the German, Austria, and Swiss region. That one is called Xing. And in India, you of course also have platforms that are more suitable to the Indian market or only used in the Indian market and not so much in the German one. Naukri, I think, is one example for that. And then Times Jobs, I think, is also another example for this. So if you want to meet lots of people, if you want to get a lot of applications, of course, these platforms are one way to organize this or one way to do this. However, from my perspective or from my experience, the big problem that you tend to have, especially when you try to hire from one culture to another, is that you don't really just need a batch of applications coming in, but you need some curated contact, as I put it here. So you don't want a huge list of CVs with a lot of details on them that you find very difficult to interpret, but you need a little bit of a guidance of what is a suitable candidate and what may not be such a suitable candidate. And there are different ways to organize this. And if you look at what these platforms here often do, I think currently this is a bit lackluster, or yeah, maybe not really optimal. From my experience, we also post some jobs that we have, or some job offers that we give out. We post them on LinkedIn, and we often get a lot of Indian applicants. However, we only see them when we click on non-suitable candidates from LinkedIn. So LinkedIn does an automated assessment of who's suitable and who's not suitable, and it rarely ever happens that an Indian applicant lands in the suitable category, but this automated unsuitable one is always very full of them. And when I have a look at this, then of course sometimes I agree with the assessment, but I have no feeling on what this is actually based. And I have a little bit of a worry that this is just based on the fact that the location may be India, and that they have learned from experience that employers in Western countries tend to disregard those applications rather a lot. And I think that if that was the case, I think that would be very wrong, because as we just saw on the previous slide, India is a huge country with a lot of graduates, much more than Germany has, and there's a huge amount of talent among those graduates. And just because we are unable to understand where they're coming from and maybe what education they received, it would be very wrong to just disregard them outright. And because of that, we propose to have a slightly more curated contact. This, in our case, is based on our notion that we want to make degrees more comparable, and how that works, I will briefly show you now. Because what we did, together with the help of GINSEP, is that we tried to understand how the Indian education system works. And what you see here are some of the crude beginnings, where we were standing at the Bangalore Tech Summit with Julian, and we were trying to find some Indian educational data. And we had a few meetings also with different politicians and important people in India, and we spent a lot of time. And what we did in the end is we built a system that is based on university entrance exams. And we focus here on the JEE mains exam / on the significant other exams that exist in the individual states. And what we have discovered is that they are quite comparable to what maybe, if you come from a German angle, maybe a natural science-based German Abitur exam. And they're quite comparable also to some extent across the states. And what we've done is, based on that, we have created a ranking of more than 14,600 different programs across India. We here focus only on STEM, so science, technology, engineering, math programs, which is not because we disregard the other programs as unimportant. Quite the contrary. It is based on the situation on the ground in India, which is that these kind of entrance exams here, they are only given for degrees, or they're only necessary for degrees from that field, from science, technology, engineering, math. And if maybe I may draw your attention very briefly to two statistics which we've put down here, which is that the admissions rate for elite Indian institutions is sometimes below 2%, and that is quite more competitive by a lot than Ivy League or Russell Group institutions in the US or in the UK, or probably also compared to, for example, the TU9, which is the group of competitive German technical universities. So this is quite astonishingly low. And then, of course, there are some gems where the admissions rate is even below 1%. And it makes me a little bit angry sometimes when I think about the fact that people apply from programs like this. They are not Indian institutes of technology, but they're still very good and not so well known, and they just get completely disregarded because a recruiter, on the other hand, has no chance to basically make out how competitive it was. And I'm very happy we have an Indian colleague who's also here today, who joined us a couple of months ago. And he had to look also as a little bit of a additional sanity check for us at the scoring that we did. And he tried some of the programs, and he realized that some of them were not very well known. Yeah, also to an Indian were not very well known. But then when you check actually how competitive is it to join those programs, you see that it can be very competitive, and that the scoring that we have produced for these 14,000 and so on exams is actually quite telling. And for us, that was a very important sign, because essentially it is what we want to do. We want to bridge the informational gap between a recruiter who's sitting 5,000 miles away and who has no chance to basically know what is competitive locally on the ground, and of course the very well-deserving applicant. And we don't only do that for the perspective, from the perspective of the recruiter, but we also do that from the perspective of the applicant. We have produced a certificate, which is currently for free for Indian talents, and you can get it at case-score.in. And what we basically do is we give you our scoring, and then we help you to apply with that scoring to companies in Germany, but also maybe in India. Maybe you find it useful to also bridge the information gap from one state to another, for example. And currently all these services are for free. What we want to do in the long run is that we want to build a talent pool where we have a lot of students from very successful, with a very successful and very strong Indian educational background. And we then want to make that, open up that talent pool to, for example, German companies who are looking for people to solve problems in all kinds of areas, in IT, in engineering, in some mathematical areas, and who really struggle to find good applicants. And we want to tell them, okay, these are candidates from India. You may not be so familiar with their educational background, or you may not be so familiar with what they have on the CV. However, we have looked at it. It is very competitive. Please get to know them, actually do an interview with them, and take a chance on hiring somebody from far away. And we hope that over time, if these things happen more and more often and the experiences are more and more positive, that this will become not the exception, but the rule. And yeah, I think I have roughly 15 minutes, so I will say thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. Yeah, maybe just a question, if there are some comments or questions from the audience directly. If not, we can I would like to jump directly to Jana Köder. She is from Hello Germany. Hello Germany, hello Germany. And she will bring us now to the question on how building successful international teams. The floor is yours, Jana.
Yes, thank you, Lina. Could you pass me the host or co-host again, because I was kicked out in between, so I would need it again.
Why? I don't know, but you should be able to.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, welcome from my side as well. Thank you for letting me speak today. Thank you for joining in. I'm happy to tell you a bit about international team building. I was also asked to talk a bit about synergies between India and Germany. So I'll try to give you a rough overview when it comes, especially with the focus on synergies in recruitment, and also maybe challenges, because I think that could probably be most helpful for you. I've also seen that in our audience today, we seem to have, mainly people with an Indian background joining. So I guess that some of you may also be startups, Indian startups who are active on the German market. So I'll focus a bit more on that and a bit less on the German side. But yeah, I'll cover both. A few words about myself. I'm the co-founder of Mitra, now turned into Hello Germany. So Mitra was an Indo-German consultancy, which I co-founded with Christoph about 4 years ago. And yeah, we did a lot of recruitment projects in the Indo-German environment. So I'm quite familiar with recruitment in Germany and India, and yeah, the challenges that companies are facing in this environment. I've recently launched Hello Germany, which is a platform which provides services to internationals in Germany. So we do help mainly with careers. We work a lot with employers and universities in Germany, and try to make it easier for people with an international background to start a career here. And one motivator behind that was a similar experience to the one that Jan was talking about, because we realized during our work and our projects that there's a very high need on the German side, a very high need to find good hires, but at the same time, Indian talent and also talent from other countries is often not taken into consideration. And one part of that is that profiles can often not be evaluated in the right way. So it's, yeah, similar motivation behind that. And Hello Germany fully focuses on the candidate side. So we try to make the life of international candidates a bit easier. I've also gained a lot of experience in different environments, so I can relate a lot to the IT environment. Also, I've done a lot of projects for engineering companies and lived in different countries, and yeah, that brought me where I am today. When we talk about synergies in Germany, I would say, and between Germany and India, I think when we look at the German job market, the first thing that always comes up is the fact that we do have a skill gap in Germany. I think all of us have heard this word several times. Fachkräftemangel is what we say in German. And German companies are struggling a lot with that. So we see an expected demand of more than 260,000 skilled workers coming up in the future. And till now, we don't really know how to cover that. And I think hiring on an international level is key here. And that's, of course, one of the synergies that I can see with the Indian market, because we have a high need in different professions right now. It's mainly IT and software, engineering, healthcare, and crafts as well. And especially in IT, software, and engineering, I can see that the Indian market really has a lot of potential when it comes to hiring. And I think we already learned a lot about Indian university degrees. So I think Jan gave a very good overview of the potential and also the challenges. So I can only add to that in general, recognition perspectives for Indian university degrees are very high, which I think makes it very interesting for startups to look at this market. And there's a high number of students exactly in the kind of subjects where we have a lack of people in Germany. And that makes it very interesting. And that's why I would just like to encourage startups from Germany to look at the Indian market and also make use of the tools that we have to make it a bit easier to hire people. The good thing is that there is a very high interest. From what I can see, I do get a lot of candidates who are highly qualified, who are really in line with what companies are looking for here. So in generally, I can see that there's a high need in working in Germany. And also, I think the fact that English is the official language and that also there are several other spoken languages in India, that I think makes it much easier as compared to hiring from non-English speaking countries, especially in the whole software sector in Berlin. I think English is anyways becoming the main spoken language. So this makes it a bit easier when it comes to recruitment. And so of course, this is not the case for all professional groups, but since this is an event for startups, I guess for a lot of you, it could be interesting because you may probably be working with IT or software solutions, or if you're looking for engineers, I think India offers a high potential. It's a bit different when we look at non-academic qualifications, because then the process of coming here becomes a bit more challenging. But looking at software roles and so on, there's definitely a very high potential. So that's the German side, just one of the synergies, of course. On the other hand, I can also see a high interest on the Indian side. And I mean, we seem to have a lot of joinees from India today as well. And in 2019, we conducted a study together with Jinsep as well and Mitra. We tried to research a bit on the Indian investment activities in Germany. And what I found out, or what we found out, was that there's definitely an increasing activity by Indian companies here. And the main reasons to invest here were the high market potential. I think especially we have a high need for software solutions, and India is quite advanced by now when it comes to that. So that's what 76% of the participating companies told us. So when I look at synergies, I would say, I think I'm not the right person to tell you where exactly to invest or what exactly the best market opportunity is. But in general, when we look at numbers, we can see that there's an increasing interest. Now, when we look at recruitment, that was also a major factor that we found out during our study. We figured out that a lot of companies, a lot of the Indian startups and companies who are already active on the German market told us that they were struggling a lot with recruitment in Germany. And I think that's a factor that's often underestimated. So about, I think 56% told us that they encountered obstacles when it comes to recruitment processes in Germany. And a lot of companies told us that this is a major risk for them, or it turned into a major risk for them at some stage because they didn't take it into account, because in India, it's quite easy to build a good workforce, right? So this is just something I wanted to point out today to the Indian startups who may have joined in. Just make sure if you invest in Germany, if you start building a company here, that you plan on enough resources for recruitment, and that you also start planning on it at an early stage. I know that startups often start with a local team that they send over from India, but at some stage, if you want to be successful, you need to have local hires, right? And that will come with quite a high investment in Germany because there's such a high competition. And because there's such a big difference between the German and the Indian job market. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out here. So in general, I see a lot of synergies, a lot of market potential on both sides. But there are also a lot of differences in recruitment that are helpful to take into account for both sides, no matter if you're an Indian startup or a German startup. And when we look at actual recruitment taking place, so my experience in India was that when you look at recruitment processes, of course, we have different work cultures. So of course, the standards in recruitment are also different, right? And one key aspect I found was that there are very fast recruitment processes in India as compared to Germany. I think we tend to be a bit slower. Of course, that's not always the case, especially startups can be very fast. But generally, we tend to be a bit slower here in Germany. Also, the hiring process is less specific. So I think that's really a key difference, that in Germany, we tend to look for the perfect match, and we do a very detailed assessment and filter out candidates at an early stage because the profile doesn't seem to be an exact match. Whereas in India, I think the companies tend to invite a lot of applicants or collect a lot of profiles, and then they decide who is a good match exactly. So they don't expect a personalized application. And this is what candidates often struggle with and what companies often struggle with as well. So it's just, I think, helpful to keep this in mind. Also, of course, the difference in the number of applicants makes a difference in behavior. So in India, I would say applicants have to stand out a bit more. On the other hand, they are more flexible, and I think that's a great opportunity for German companies who are hiring from India, because it's a great advantage if you have employees who are a bit more flexible, maybe on the location, the exact profile they will be working on, and so on. And that's, I think, very different when you hire here locally, because often you will get local hires who also have a very specific expectation, and it's not always easy to deal with that. So just be prepared for that if you're an Indian startup, that you may need to adapt your processes a bit. Then another topic I often come across that's just key is that I think in India the starting salaries seem to be or tend to be lower, but there are more frequent promotions happening. And in Germany, we tend to start on a slightly higher level, but maybe then we promote less frequently. And my experience is that this is just helpful to keep in mind when you build or when you design your recruitment processes here. If you're a German company, it's just helpful to have good expectation management and maybe discuss this in the beginning to set the expectations right, because you don't want to have an unhappy employee at the end. So this is just a matter of getting the communication right. So these were just a few differences. There are a lot more, but I wanted to give you just a rough overview. So from my point of view, to just sum it up roughly, I would say if we talk about success factors, the first step should always be, of course, to run a quick check of visa requirements and also recognition processes if you are considering to hire on an international level, and then maybe define some shared rules of thumb or shared selection processes that you can apply across your different recruitment platforms. So one part of that may be that you also have to check your salary levels to decide right in the beginning if this is a position where you can actually hire someone with a non-EU profile, because there are visa requirements and a minimum salary in place. So this may not be possible if the salary is too low. On top of that, I would always try to keep in mind that you may have a good candidate profile in front of you, but the candidate is just used to different standards, application standards. So just like Jan was just saying that on LinkedIn, candidates are often filtered out. I think this also happens in manual processes quite often, just because the judgment is taking place based on what people are used to. And here, I think it's just helpful maybe to expect less personalized applications. It doesn't mean that the applicant is not interested or did not invest time in the application. It's just, a different standard. Also, I would suggest to always have a technical test. I know that most of the companies are doing this, but I've still seen cases where companies kind of skip this thorough testing. But if you're hiring from a different market, just make sure that the technical skills are sufficient, because the tools may be different in a different work environment. Cultural fit, of course, is always important, I think, in recruitment. And then, as I said, I think communication is key. So make sure that you actively discuss expectations in terms of promotions and salary increases, because that's where I often see things go wrong after a successful hiring. And I know that hiring on an international level comes at a high cost. So if you hire someone from India and this person relocates, you also want to make sure that this person stays for a while, right? Because it's a big time and maybe also financial investment. So I think this problem can be avoided if you discuss this at an early stage. Then do plan on sufficient time. So I think for this, it's helpful to keep track of visa requirements, because if you're aware of them, you can speed up the visa process a bit. And if possible, it's always good to have some resources available that help with visa processes, even if it's just hiring, or often it's best to hire an external agency for that, because if you need persons on short notice, then of course the visa process will stand in the way of that. So just plan on sufficient resources for that. Another aspect where I've seen things go wrong often is the employment contract. So there's a really different understanding of the employment contract in India in many cases, because I think German contracts are very binding. So here, the general suggestion would just be to have an onboarding and also a negotiation process that takes into account that you have an international candidate who probably needs a bit more explanation and support than a local candidate. Just take this into account when you design your onboarding. And I think my last point would be to always keep in mind that there might be a family moving along. So if you want to keep your candidate, your hire for a long time and build an international team successfully, I think it's helpful if you provide support for that as well. And I know the budgets are often tight if you have a startup, but it can also already be sufficient if you have a mentee or a mentor in your company who can help a bit with some of the issues like housing and so on, so that onboarding gets a bit easier, not only for the candidate, but also for the family that moves along, because that's a success factor to stay in Germany on the long run. So with that, I think I'm done. I think that was already a lot of input in a short amount of time. I'm looking forward to our discussion later on. And of course, you can always reach out to me on Hello Germany, reach out to people from our team, and looking forward to our discussion later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jana. I think, yes, it was really interesting. Now we will discuss later on, and I don't know if there are direct questions. Just to ask again, if there is a question from Kuldeep.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Yana. Hello. So my question is, Yana, yes. Hi, Yana. My name is Kuldeep Nagpal. I am from company KN Management Consultants Private Limited. We are based out of Delhi. We are working for German companies in India since many years, and aware about the German community in India. So I have a question that being an Indian company, can we recruit a business development person we wanted to recruit in Germany, or we want to have a company there first?
You mean in terms of administrative part, or do you mean in general if it's possible to find business developers in such for such a proposition? Yeah. So my experience is that finding that you would need someone with a sales profile, right? So that's often a request I get, because that's usually the starting stage, right, to enter the German market. So my experience is that this only works if you are willing to commit to a fixed kind of salary, or a consulting framework where you pay this person with a daily or hourly rate.
Actually, we were having previously one person in Munich. She was working as a freelancer for us. But since last 2 years, due to COVID also, she changed her profile. Then we don't have anyone there in Germany right now. So we are looking for someone who can work on a fixed salary, who can work as a freelancer.
Yeah. Okay, so for freelancer positions, unfortunately, I'm not the expert, because I only work with like full-time employment.
Yeah, full-time also.
I guess you would need a local, so I mainly have people with international backgrounds.
Okay.
But I'm sure maybe other persons in the GINSEP network can also be helpful for that. I think this is a good opportunity to maybe share this. If you have a job ad or something, then maybe you could share it with the GINSEP network.
Definitely.
Maybe that would be a good way to find someone. So
Sure.
I'd be happy if you share it with me. I'm also happy to share it on our channels.
Maybe.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you can also share it with me if you like to, and maybe directly to ask Julian if you would like to. Maybe he can also help on that.
Definitely.
But send it to us, and we will find the right person directly.
Thank you so much, Lina.
Good.
Thank you.
Yes, other questions? Yeah, there's one question from Yugadish, I think.
Yana,
Yugadish, please.
Yana, thanks for the nice talk. I would like to know more about what Hello Germany does in terms of helping others to recruit. And also, I mean, I'm trying to build a startup. I'm still figuring out where to hire in Germany or in India, because in India, as you said, like salaries are lower. So when you are building a startup, it's always, budget is a thing that you need to consider. So if I want to recruit somebody in Germany, is there any legal perspective that I need to take care?
Yeah, so first of all, so 2 questions, right? So I'll tell you quickly about Hello Germany and then the legal perspectives. So with Hello Germany, we mainly support people in their career process. So we help with reviewing applications, we prepare people for interviews, and also we run a job board and work with companies. So whenever we get placement requests, we also place people based on company requests. So for that, everyone, including you, of course, are always invited to sign up for our newsletter and our social media channels. So then you'll be notified about job openings. And we do, once you've found an opening, we help with negotiation. So getting everything right with the company and also with the whole visa process and getting started in Germany. So it's basically a full support for the entire process of getting started in Germany. And yeah, I'd be happy to tell you more about it. You can always reach out to me directly. For hiring in Germany, I'm yeah, I'm not an expert on all the legal aspects, but in general, of course, you need to take into account, legal rights in terms of employment here in Germany. So you need a formal employment, you need a formal payroll. But do you have a registered company in Germany?
We had a simple GBR.
Okay, yeah, okay. So for that, I think you can also hire with an employment contract.
Okay.
And I guess for that would be good to talk to a tax consultant or someone to get that right, to help you with payroll, because you would need support with that. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Jana.
Yeah, you're welcome.